August 8, 1944. Berlin Plötzensee Prison. A 57-year-old German general, decorated in 2 world wars, a man who once commanded 500,000 troops, is dragged into a small execution chamber. He is wearing a suit 2 sizes too large. His false teeth have been taken away. He can barely speak. A meat hook is screwed into the ceiling beam. A thin hemp rope, what witnesses would later call a piano wire, is looped around his neck. Hitler's personal order was this: they must hang like cattle. In some cases, this method of execution took up to 20 agonizing minutes. His name was Erich Hoepner, and this is the story of how one of Germany's greatest generals ended up on a meat hook, ordered there by the very leader he once served. Before we go any further, if you're new here, welcome to War Heroes Times Tales, the channel where we don't sanitize history. We tell it exactly as it happened. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now, because the stories we cover here are the ones most channels are too afraid to touch. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Erich Kurt Richard Hoepner was born on September 14, 1886, in Frankfurt an der Oder, a garrison city on the Polish border that had produced Prussian military men for generations. His family moved to Berlin in 1890, where young Erich enrolled in the prestigious Kaiserin Augusta Gymnasium, a school reserved for the sons of Berlin's educated upper class. Even then, the military was not just a career option for him, it was a calling. In 1913, Hoepner entered the Prussian War College, the most elite military institution in the German Empire. He was sharp, disciplined, and politically perceptive, qualities that would later both define and destroy him. When the First World War exploded across Europe in 1914, Hoepner was deployed to the Western Front as a company commander and cavalry staff officer. By the time the guns fell silent on November 11, 1918, he had been decorated with both classes of the Iron Cross, the German military's highest combat honors. He was 32 years old, battle-tested, and already marked as a rising star. In 1910, he had married Irma Gebauer, the daughter of a manufacturer. They had 2 children together. By all accounts, the marriage was steady and grounded, a quiet domestic life behind the armor of a soldier's career. That family would later become collateral damage in one of history's most vicious acts of political revenge. When Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party seized power in 1933, Hoepner, like many career military officers, watched with deep unease. He never joined the Nazi Party, not once. In a German military culture where party membership became a fast track to promotion, that refusal said everything. By 1936, he was promoted to general major and given command of the 1st Light Division, one of Germany's early armored units. A steel fist being built for a war that Hitler was already quietly planning. Then came 1938. 2 shocking events shook the German high command to its core. War Minister Werner von Blomberg was forced to resign after marrying a woman with a criminal record, a scandal that destroyed his credibility overnight. Days later, Army Commander-in-Chief Werner von Fritsch was framed by the SS on fabricated charges of homosexuality and forced out as well. Both men were loyal professional soldiers. Both were removed to make room for men more willing to follow Hitler blindly. Hoepner was furious. This was no longer just politics. It was the systematic gutting of a professional military by a fanatical political machine. His fury became action. He joined the Oster Conspiracy, a secret network led by General Hans Oster and senior conservatives within the Wehrmacht. Their plan was direct. If Hitler launched Germany into a war over the Sudetenland, the ethnic German border region of Czechoslovakia, they would move to overthrow him. Hoepner's personal assignment was to lead his division into Berlin and neutralize the SS forces protecting the Nazi leadership. It was the most dangerous gamble of his life, and it nearly happened. But British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain and French Premier Edouard Daladier handed Hitler exactly what he wanted at Munich on September 30th, 1938. With no war and no trigger, the conspiracy collapsed. Hitler looked like a genius. The conspirators melted back into the ranks. Hoepner had been ready to move against Hitler in 1938. He would get another chance. 6 years later. When World War II began on September 1st, 1939, Hoepner commanded the 16th Army Corps during the invasion of Poland. His forces covered 230 kilometers in just 7 days, one of the fastest armored advances in military history up to that point. That October, he received the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross for his battlefield performance. During the fall of France in May to June 1940, when Hoepner led attacks through Belgium, striking at Liège, pushing toward Dunkirk, and driving south to Dijon, France, and with one of the largest armies in the world, fell in 6 weeks. But it was during this campaign that Hoepner revealed a moral complexity rare among senior German commanders. The SS Division Totenkopf, the Death's Head Division, was placed under his command. From the first days, the tension was volcanic. On May 24, 1940, Hoepner issued a standing order. Any soldier found mistreating prisoners would face immediate court-martial. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a direct command. 3 days later, soldiers from the Totenkopf executed approximately 97 British prisoners of war at a farm in Paradis, France, unarmed men who had surrendered. When Hoepner learned of the massacre, he demanded a full investigation and called for the dismissal of the division's commander, SS Gruppenführer Theodor Eicke. Eicke ran to Heinrich Himmler. The SS closed ranks. No one faced consequences. The massacre was buried. Hoepner never forgave it. He publicly called Eicke a butcher, an extraordinary act of contempt in a military culture where the SS was untouchable. He maintained open disdain for the Waffen-SS for the rest of his career. In July 1940, he was promoted to Generaloberst, Colonel General, one of the highest ranks in the German military. On June 22, 1941, 3 million German soldiers crossed into the Soviet Union in the largest military invasion in human history. Hoepner commanded the 4th Panzer Group, assigned to Army Group North with a directive to drive toward Leningrad. His forces moved with terrifying speed, securing critical bridges over the Dvina River in northern Latvia within the first days, driving hundreds of kilometers through the Baltic states. By late September, Hoepner and his Panzer Group were transferred to Army Group Center for Operation Typhoon, the German assault on Moscow. October opened with a stunning success. His forces encircled the Soviet city of Vyazma, cutting off entire Soviet armies and threatening the road to the Soviet capital. He came within 30 kilometers of Moscow. 30 kilometers, but October's success became November's nightmare. The infamous Rasputitsa, the Russian mud season, turned roads into swamps. Tanks sank to their axles. Supply trucks couldn't move. The German logistics chain, already stretched to breaking, snapped. Soviet forces, receiving fresh divisions from Siberia, launched a ferocious counterattack on December 5, 1941. On the same day that Hoepner was forced to halt his advance, the Red Army struck back. January 1942. The Wehrmacht was freezing to death on the outskirts of Moscow. Temperatures had dropped to -40 degrees. Men's weapons froze. Frostbite claimed more casualties than Soviet bullets. Hitler's answer was a stand-fast order. Not 1 meter of ground would be surrendered. Retreat meant death by firing squad. Hoepner looked at his exhausted, frostbitten men. He looked at the maps. He made a decision. He asked his superior, Field Marshal Günther von Kluge, for permission to withdraw and consolidate. Kluge said he would discuss it with Hitler. Hoepner, believing approval was coming, ordered the withdrawal on January 8 to save his troops from annihilation. Kluge panicked and immediately reported it to Hitler. Hitler's reaction was volcanic. Hoepner was stripped of his rank, his decorations, his pension, and his right to wear a German uniform, all in a single day. He was publicly labeled a coward and a traitor, but Hoepner refused to accept it quietly. He took Hitler to court, and he won. Judges, still independent in 1942, ruled that Hitler had violated military regulations and restored his pension. For a brief moment, an ordinary man in a German court had checked the absolute power of the Führer. It wouldn't last. By the summer of 1944, the war had turned catastrophically against Germany. The Soviets were pushing from the east. On June 6, 1944, American, British, UN and Canadian forces landed on the beaches of Normandy. The walls were closing in. Within the German officer corps, The conclusion was spreading like a cold fire. Hitler had to be removed, or Germany would be destroyed. The conspirators moved. On July 20th, 1944, Colonel Klaus von Stauffenberg placed a bomb-laden briefcase under the conference table at Hitler's eastern headquarters, the Wolf's Lair in Rastenburg, East Prussia. He left the room. The bomb detonated. Hitler survived. A heavy table leg had deflected the blast. Hoepner had been designated as commander-in-chief in the home war zone if the coup succeeded, essentially the military governor of Germany during the transition away from Nazi rule. When the plot failed and Hitler's survival was confirmed, the arrests began within hours. In the early hours of July 21st, the Gestapo came to Hoepner's home. He was arrested, taken for interrogation, and tortured. When offered the chance to take his own life, as many officers did to avoid trial, Hoepner refused. He demanded a trial. He wanted to speak. The trial was not justice. It was theater. Savage, humiliating theater designed to destroy men before killing them. Judge Roland Freisler, a screaming fanatic in red robes, ran the People's Court like a public execution of dignity. Defendants were denied their military uniforms. Hoepner was forced to wear a civilian suit that didn't fit. Oversized, disheveled, deliberate. His false teeth were confiscated so he could not speak clearly. He stood before the cameras slurring and struggling while Freisler screamed insults at him. Hoepner's wife Irma, his daughter, his son, his brother, and his sister were all arrested under the Nazi principle of Sippenhaft, collective family punishment. The women were sent to Ravensbrück concentration camp. His son was imprisoned at Buchenwald. On August 8, 1944, just 18 days after the bomb went off, Freisler sentenced Erich Hoepner to death. The sentence was carried out the same day. At Berlin Plötzensee prison, in a room with a steel beam screwed into the ceiling, Hoepner was brought in. By Hitler's explicit personal order, the condemned were to be hanged like cattle. Not the standard drop, a meat hook, a thin rope. Witnesses called it piano wire, a slow, deliberate death designed to humiliate even in dying. In some cases, men strangled for up to 20 minutes. The executions were filmed on Hitler's orders so he could watch them personally that evening. Erich Hoepner, a man who had defied SS war criminals, refused a coward's exit, and stood trial when lesser men took poison, was 57 years old. He died on a meat hook in a Berlin prison on August 8, 1944. History has complicated verdicts for men like Erich Hoepner. He served a criminal regime, issued brutal orders on the Eastern Front, and oversaw war crimes under his command. These facts don't disappear, but he also protected British prisoners when no one forced him to. He refused to join the Nazi Party. He tried to overthrow Hitler, twice, and when they came for him, he did not run. He asked for a trial. He wanted the world to hear him. The Nazis made sure it didn't.